General Hospital July 21st recap, Jason's obsession intensifies, Jocelyn spirals, and Brooklyn faces the unexpected ***. The sun rose over Paris with a quiet indifference, but Jason Morgan's heart was already thundering with determination. He wasn't here for sightseeing or nostalgia. No, Jason had just seen her, ***, a woman who shouldn't exist star. She was boarding a flight to Dubrovnik, and the unmistakable features, the posture, the hauntingly familiar glance, it had to be Britt. Or someone who looked too much like her to be coincidence. For a man who rarely let emotion crack through his stoic surface, this shook him to his core. Jason knew Britt was gone, but the human mind isn't built to ignore ghosts when they take flesh. At the bustling Charles de Gaulle airport, Jason approached the boarding gate with increasing tension. Airline personnel stood firm. No boarding pass. No exceptions. But Jason had never been a man who waited patiently when something vital slipped through his fingers. He tried logic, persuasion, even demanded an escort from security to plead his case directly. Just a minute, he said, a single minute. But the rules were unyielding, and the plane taxied down the runway without him. The woman, whoever she truly was, vanished into the clouds en route to Dubrovnik, leaving Jason on the tarmac with nothing but questions and an aching heart. Yet, that moment of failure would not be the end. If the woman was real, if she had boarded a flight to Dubrovnik, then that was where Jason would go next. It wasn't hope, it was compulsion. Britt had once carved out a place in his life when it seemed impossible. If there was even a chance she was alive, or that someone wanted him to believe so, Jason had to follow that trail, no matter where it led. Back in Port Charles, the world continued to spin, albeit on an increasingly dangerous axis. At the Metro Court poolside, Jack Brennan lounged in the sun, playing the role of charming suitor to Carly Spencer. Their chemistry was undeniable, at least on the surface. Brennan knew how to smooth the edges of every conversation, his words like warm silk brushing over old wounds. Carly, too weary from past betrayals and too hungry for something real, began to relax into the illusion of romance. They laughed, sipped cocktails, and danced around the hard questions. Especially the ones involving Jocelyn. For Jocelyn Jacks, however, the illusion cracked the moment Brennan touched her mother's hand. To her, Brennan was not just an unwanted step into her family's fragile peace. He was something far worse, a man with secrets sewn into every breath. His involvement with the WSB wasn't clean, and his interest in Carly couldn't be chalked up to love alone. Jocelyn's instinct screamed caution, but those around her seemed willing to look the other way. Vaughn saw the storm brewing inside her. He cornered Jocelyn later that day, voice low but edged with pressure. She needed to accept reality, he told her. Brennan wasn't going anywhere, and he didn't need her approval. In fact, pushing too hard might trigger consequences she wasn't prepared to face. Vaughn reminded her that Brennan had power, more than she could understand. If she wanted to protect Carly, she'd need to tread carefully. Jocelyn's jaw tightened, but the lesson didn't go unheard. She wasn't ready to roll over, but Vaughn's warning stayed with her. She sensed there were larger games at play, and that she, knowingly or not, had already become a piece on someone else's board. Across town, Anna Devane paced her office, unease churning in her gut. Every breadcrumb she followed in the WSB mess seemed to circle back to one common denominator, Jocelyn. The organization, supposedly gutted after its recent implosions, still had strings to pull and shadows to cast. And now, Jocelyn's name appeared too frequently, in the wrong reports, at the wrong times. Anna's instinct as a spy kicked in hard. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a recruitment gone wrong, or worse, an entrapment disguised as opportunity. Dante Falconeri arrived with more troubling intel. Surveillance files, encrypted messages, and notes passed through dead drops. Jocelyn's digital footprint intersected with WSB operations more than once. If she wasn't working with them, then she was being used. Either way, the threat was real. And Anna couldn't shake the feeling that Jocelyn, for all her strength and defiance, was in over her head. Meanwhile, another storm was brewing at Deception. Brooklyn Quartermain had grown comfortable navigating the unpredictable seas of Lucy Coe's business whims. But nothing could have prepared her for what Lucy pulled next. During an impromptu broadcast of Home and Heart, Lucy announced a special surprise, one that would change the way Port Charles sees beauty and legacy. Moments later, the cameras cut to a familiar face from the past, Lois Cerullo star. The crowd erupted. Social media lit up. And Brooklyn stared in stunned disbelief. Lois' return wasn't just a dramatic flourish. It was a power play. Her reappearance meant something deeper was shifting. For Brooklyn, it felt like the foundation of her identity had been kicked out from under her. She had fought hard to carve her own name, only to have the past walk back in wearing heels and a smirk. What Lucy's endgame was remained unclear, but one thing was certain, she had no intention of fading quietly into the corporate background. With Lois at her side, Lucy was rewriting the script, and Brooklyn would either adapt or get written out of it. Back in Paris, Jason sat alone in a hotel room, the lights dimmed, the silence thick with memory. He stared at a photo of Britt on his phone, the old smile taunting him like a phantom limb. Was it really her on that plane? Or was someone toying with him, exploiting grief that never healed? He didn't know. But the tickets to Dubrovnik were already booked. Whatever awaited him on the other side of that journey, truth or deception, reunion or heartbreak, Jason was done sitting still. And if the dead were walking, then it was time to find out who had opened the door. As Monday drew to a close in Port Charles, secrets tightened like nooses. Jocelyn stood at a crossroads, Jason chased shadows halfway across the world, and Brooklyn stared into the camera lens of a world that suddenly no longer belonged to her. No one realized it yet, but the dominoes were already falling. And by the end of the week, someone would be left with nothing but ashes.